70% of true crime audiences are women. Many of us fall asleep to murder podcasts, binge the latest documentaries, and somehow call it self-care. But why? Why do we find comfort in other people's nightmares? And what does that say about us? Tonight, we're not just talking about what to watch, but why we watch. From Making a Murderer to Don't F with Cats, The Jinx, Tiger King, and American Nightmare, we're unpacking obsession, empathy, and the darker corners of our curiosity. I'm Janackeh.
I'm Nick.
And this is Rectangles Podcast, episode 12, where we're talking about the psychology of our true crime obsession.
So just to give a kind of a behind the scenes and cap to this concept, if you've watched our previous two-part episodes before this is spooky season here at the Rectangles Podcast. Now, I was originally planning for this month to have a sort of a theme. And originally the theme was mainstream horror, independent horror, and then basically black horror, and then also foreign horror, which would mainly be Asian horror. But some things changed along the way, and some thoughts came about, and honestly, just to have a behind the scenes with you guys and some transparency, I was originally wanting us to watch things on the level of A24 horror, Hereditary and whatnot. My co-star here is a little too scary to watch that movie. She will be watching some of this Asian horror movies though. But it made me kind of think, and it gave me a thought. And I was like, this woman all day watches true horror movies, which is true crime, but it is horror. And so as a thought experiment and as something that I think would be a good conversation to just be had amongst film buffs is, for me, true crime is a genre unto itself, but honestly, it's horror movies. It's just, it actually happened. And it's weird that the psychology for knowing that women are more drawn into horror movies that essentially don't feature gore, you essentially have a true crime show. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, supposedly based on a true story, but we do see the gore. Hills Have Eyes, supposedly, I'm sure those hills actually do have eyes in real life. But the fact that we know that there are neighbors next door that are plotting on our daughters, and sometimes on the whole entire family. Sometimes there's just nice, unassuming couples just get kidnapped while just going about their lives. It's strange. For me, I'm a little bit more terrified about those real incidents. Some unknown source or creeping figure in the dark that doesn't have a face or may have a mouthful of bees or a mask at the lake with a machete, those don't really scare me. So it's kind of interesting that the inverse talks so well to the opposite sex. And I think that's going to be the actual main goal of today, is to get down to maybe some of the heart of it, trying to figure some things out, and just overall rolling this right into spooky season. So hope you guys are along for the ride. Like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, please.
And of course, also, if you're listening to us in the audio format, you usually will have a link. Leave us a message. We'll also drop that link in for you guys on YouTube and watching us, of course, visually. We appreciate you. And let us know how it's going. Let us know if there's something you want to see changed. My co-star tells me that she wants to try to get the camera a little closer. We'll see. Is that something you guys are looking for? Let us know. But yeah, what do you got, Jan? What we got to start with?
So I've watched a lot of documentaries, like a lot, a lot.
She is.
Mostly true crime. And from my standpoint, yes, I am fascinated by true crime, but overarching, I'm fascinated by people's stories. And that's why, like, anytime there's a documentary on, I want to watch it because I'm just fascinated by people's lives and just how different they are from mine and, people that I know and experiences that I've gone through. Like, I've said this before, but yeah, you can't like deny or even debate somebody's lived experience. And so I'm just very curious about how other people live because all of these documentaries, like one thing that they have in common is like I don't see myself necessarily like fully in those stories. And so it's just, it's a curiosity of mine. I'm nosy, I can say that. And so like, yeah, I'm nosy to hear about other people's lives and the things that have happened to them. It is very fascinating to me. But I wanted to start out talking about like I took kind of a bunch of documentaries that I've watched and kind of taken some that are, I guess, the more popular or just had plots that were stand out from the pack, so to speak. And I wanted to kind of group them together and talk about a few of them. We don't have time to talk about my whole list of documentaries, but so I wanted to start out with some that I would consider like plot twist documentaries. And the three I want to talk about in this, sort of, the plot twists that stand out to me are American Nightmare, Long Shot, and Making a Murderer. All three of these you can find on Netflix. They're usually on Netflix. I know how Netflix like takes some content off and on at different times, so you would definitely have to check. But generally, the three of these should be available on Netflix. The first one, American Nightmare. So I actually wanted to compare this one to another one that's actually on Hulu, and that's Perfect Wife, and it's the mysterious disappearance of Sherri Papini. So the story of American Nightmare is basically Denise and Aaron report a home invasion and kidnapping in 2015 in Vallejo, California, and the police call it a hoax, and they compare her to Gone Girl. If you've heard of that book and movie, it came out around 2010, and it became like just a huge sensation. And what's funny is I like when or during that time I read the book and I didn't see the movie until like maybe a decade after the movie had come out,
Oh,
but
wow.
I read the book at the time, and I think that's probably why I didn't watch the movie because I was just like, I just read this book, I know what happens, like, you know, it was good. I just didn't see the movie at the time. There was no real reason why, but so you take the story of American Nightmare, and it turns out that, the police were calling this a hoax, and it turns out they were actually kidnapped. And the kidnapper ends up being caught, and it proves that they were telling the truth the entire time. Juxtapose that with the Sherri Papini story. In 2016, she vanished from her California neighborhood, sparking a massive nationwide search and a flood of media sympathy. And weeks later, she reappeared with bruises, bindings, and a story of an abduction by two women, and just all of these things. And later on, the story unraveled to be an elaborate hoax. So she actually was lying. And, you know, watching both of those documentaries, it's almost like holding up two sides of the same mirror because, you have one woman over here who actually was kidnapped and she gets called a liar. You have another one over here who gets all of this sympathy and it turns out she was lying. And so, I think both of those stories, they really expose something deeper about how much we rely on appearance and narrative to decide who we believe.
Well, and I kind of wanted to I was thinking about that just now. So I watched one with you, which was the American
American Nightmare.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
But I did not watch the other one. But just looking at the timelines and thinking about it, the couple that was led to not be believed was actually kidnapped and abducted a year
First.
earlier.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, and I know they were out of Vallejo, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. Both sets of situations happening in California. Now, do you know if the Sherri Papini, what part of California she was in? Was she in Northern California as well?
I
Not
don't
necessarily,
know
but
exactly.
I wonder if because of the reaction in the state of California, essentially, to this original couple getting kidnapped, led to them being like, well, let's not mess this up and take Sherri Papini's story a lot more seriously when she may have just been easily also as well dismissed. But I think that couple going through their American Nightmare kind of led credence to, okay, well, no, wait a minute. Maybe we were watching too much TV and let's take this serious. And this woman took advantage of the system.
Yeah. And so, yeah, Sherri Papini was, she was in Redding, California,
Uh,
which is also up by Sacramento and all of
Yep,
that.
yep,
So,
Northern California. So, yeah, I think it was probably it being on the local news, what happened to the previous couple in Vallejo. I'm sure them in Reading were probably like, ooh, let's not be on the news. And she fully took advantage of that. And possibly, I didn't watch hers, obviously, but it does sound very fully thought out and planned to a certain extent.
and
So
was.
she was probably definitely watching theirs and seeing how they got dragged through the mud, got exonerated essentially of, oh no, this is really happening. And then she was like, yep, I think this is my time. I can go and fully do this because they're going to buy it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
And yeah, she almost got away with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very interesting because I think that goes into some real psychology of there's some people out there that are really plotting some crazy stuff right now. And like one, we don't know about it. It might be happening in, I don't know, Grand Rapids, Michigan or something. But yeah, somebody is always out there doing something crazy or unfathomable. And that's the stuff that keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I grew up in an era of like even watching America's Most Wanted and just seeing the list of people they haven't caught as a little kid, and I'm sitting there like, Dad, is the door locked? What? They wait a minute. That guy's in Texas? Oh no, 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 no. He's 20 miles away. No, no, nope. Not going outside tonight. Now that I know this guy exists, so the fact that it's funny that that concept of the hard copies and Dateline and 2020, which is still relevant into today, but the fact that that's a whole billion-dollar industry
Yeah.
almost unto itself
Yeah.
is really
That's been going for
crazy.
decades. Yeah.
Yeah, which is wild because I also like horror films go through a big ebb and flow, but it seems like true crime has been on a constant like upswing, and I would say that was probably by the advent of Netflix for sure.
Yeah.
Especially most of the ones you just said are all on Netflix, with the exception
Yeah.
of Sherri Papini. So yeah.
The next one on my list is Long Shot, which is so great. If you've never watched it, I encourage you to watch it. It's less than an hour. And it tells the story of Juan Catalan, who is accused of murder, and a random night at a Dodgers game literally saves his life. Longshot is one of those cases where a man's life literally hangs on a single, almost impossible coincidence. And it's not about the crime, it's about the proof. So imagine being accused of something you didn't do, and your only hope of freedom is buried somewhere in Hollywood footage you didn't even know existed. That's basically what happens to Juan. And it's the kind of story that can only happen in Los Angeles, part courtroom and part cosmic twist. It's definitely gonna make you question how random life really is.
I did like this one. This one to me, it's funny that you added it because to me, yes, it's true crime. Because there was a crime that was committed. Obviously, it's true. But I think that's funny because I felt like that one wasn't made almost intentionally for the female gaze. It didn't, because there's a certain way it's shot. A lot of true crime documentaries. I think there's starting to be I would say, like I think I've said before on this podcast, I think of directors in generations. And there's like fourth generation directors, there's first generation directors, and it's like it's pretty much in the time of learning how to shoot or edit or even framing, lighting certain things, shooting certain scenes and juxtaposition. I think true crime is getting into second gen of sorts, where for the longest, when it was just, like I said, the 2020s, the Datelines, there was a certain look to it. And when I see some of those old clips just happen on the internet or anything like that, I'm like, oh, wow, that's okay. Because this isn't meant for basic television at 9 o'clock
Yeah.
on a Wednesday on NBC or ABC. There's just a certain way it's just shot because it's being born out of the news versus fully coming from like a full entertainment angle. And now I feel like it's coming from now where you're taking filmmakers are delving into this like true crime space. So it's kind of like a different art to it. And the long shot one was really interesting because I felt like it wasn't necessarily, and maybe it was what they were trying to tackle. They didn't tackle it from the angle of the crime. It was tackled from the discovery of things and how like this person gets exonerated in a way, and like just because it was just a long shot, it was such a like 1 in a billion chance that it just so happened to have it turned out the way it did. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
That was a really cool one, and that really stands out a lot on this list of a lot of these things that you have on here. That I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna cover that one. That one was really good.
Yeah.
And I like the way that flowed, and it didn't waste my time. Some of the ones that you recommend, I'm kind of sitting there and I'm like, there's like 4 episodes for this when it could have been an email.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, and I feel that way about some of them too.
Yeah.
Like I sit and watch them and I'm like, this was 4 episodes that could have been 2 easily.
Yeah.
Like they add a lot of fluff that was just unnecessary, but I get it. Like
or just a movie
That's-
format where it's
yeah.
just 2 hours. We can get this all banged out,
Right.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And what comes to mind is, I feel like sometimes some of those true crime things are meant to be second screen viewing shows. Now, there's a thing they've said in Netflix. Supposedly, it's gotten out by writers and people have dealt with them, and they've said, "Oh, this doesn't really feel second screen viewing." And what I mean by second screen viewing, if you've never really heard of that term, is the TV is the second screen. They're expecting you to be on your phone doing whatever. And you just have the TV on for noise. And it needs to be paced in a certain way where the viewer needs to constantly keep the show on, like basically keeping eyes on Netflix. But essentially, this is intentional of where it's not going to mess up the flow for somebody who's clearly not paying attention. So if you ever notice some of these shows, and I've noticed it because I'm a TV watcher, I don't like folks on their phone if we're supposed to be watching TV because I am paying attention. If you pay attention to some of these, you'll be like, this is kind of stupid because they've just repeated the same thing. There's no commercials here unless you're on the basic plan on Netflix. And an ordinary person. Shout out Black Mirror. But if you are like
Common people.
paying, is it common people?
Yeah.
Hey, basic plan people. If you're on that ads plan, then maybe it'll make some sense. But if I'm just watching this straight through and we're binging this on a Sunday like afternoon, I'm sitting here like, okay, they repeated this again. We're watching this. Why do they got to return to this? It makes a lot more sense when you think about it, where you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing something else while this is playing. Clearly.
And see, I can't if I want to know what's happening with it. I've tried, and that's what's like. If it's a podcast, sure, but if it's a documentary, I have to watch because there's always like something that you miss, whether it be some footage that they show or like, you know, the interview with certain people. Like sometimes I have to go back to see like who were they and how are they related to the story. Like there's so many like little details that you miss. So yeah, for me, like Netflix has never been one that I can like look away and do other things if I'm really trying to grasp what happened.
Right.
But yeah, so going into my last one in this kind of category of, you know, the twists would definitely be Making a Murderer, which that came out in December 2015. I remember so vividly because I watched it when it came out, and that was kind of, for me, the first time that I truly like binged a documentary series like that. And so yeah, that was like 10 years ago, and so yeah, I've watched a lot of documentaries in the last 10 years, but that was kind of the first one. And just to give you like a recap of that story, so that one, the original came out in 2015. They did a part two follow up in 2018, and I did watch both. But essentially, the whole story was about Stephen Avery, who spent years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, and then he got accused of murder after being exonerated of the previous crime. So along with his nephew, he became the center of a national debate about corruption and bias, and the whole like breaking it down. So Stephen Avery, he was wrongly imprisoned for 18 years from 1985 to 2003 for the sexual assault of a woman that it was later proven to have been committed by another person. So DNA evidence exonerated Avery in 2003, and he was fully released after nearly 2 decades behind bars. When he was released, he was seen as a symbol of justice reform in Wisconsin, and he even filed a $36 million lawsuit against the county where he was accused and the officials involved in his wrongful conviction. Well, just 2 years after his release in 2005, a photographer by the name of Teresa Hallback went missing after visiting Avery's property to photograph a vehicle for Auto Trader magazine. Her car and her charred remains were found on Avery's property, along with what investigators said was Avery's blood inside her vehicle. He was charged with murder, and prosecutors argued that he lured her into his home and killed her. His defense claimed he was framed by the county, the same officials he was suing to discredit him and avoid the fallout from his civil lawsuit. He was convicted in 2007 and sentenced to life in prison without parole. So to this day, he's still in prison, and his nephew, along the way, ended up getting questioned by police, was essentially coerced into a confession, later recanted and said, like, that's not what happened. Like, they made me say these things. He's also in prison for life. To this day, they are both still fighting these charges. And, like, that was the first one that I watched, and I was just like, wow. Like, I just, I watched like so many different like shows and movies, but like that one, I was like, how is this allowed to happen? And that, I think around that time, 2015, was the time that I first really started finding out about like the Innocence Project, and they got involved with that case, and then I really started following and hearing about a lot of cases that they were like retrying and trying to get convictions cleared, and they've been successful on a lot of them, but that really opened my eyes to the justice system and how it really works, and how many times so many people get accused of things that they didn't do. And it takes organizations like the Innocence Project and other organizations who are fighting this for the same causes, who can really help these people. And it's just sad because there's only so many people and so many cases that they can take. So
I would say the funny thing to point out about this one in particular, it was a kind of like a phenomenon. I remember it was going super viral. I watched it just because a lot of people were talking about it, and back then at that time we still had like an active Black Twitter, and they were really talking about this. Uh, and Black Twitter was just really good at making like an event out of like streaming, especially like even Game of Thrones was going
yeah.
on and things like that. And so I remember Making a Murderer being a really big hit amongst like a black audience that traditionally probably wouldn't be into like true crime like that, because of the simple fact of you really got to see a white man that had gotten messed with by the police in a white town. And, it was just kind of like, oh, so it's not just us all the time that they be messing with. They even messed with this guy, and he was imprisoned under false pretenses. Because, of course, every time we look at the news, especially in the last couple months, in 2025, as we're filming this, there's been multiple black men that have been freed finally after 20 something years. I think one of them was 30 years. This man finally got out, got locked up at 19, and then got out nearly in his 40s, almost 50s. And then he just, I believe, got a settlement of like 18, almost 20 million from the state. And it's like, yeah, that's great, but is that, is that worth 30 years of your life, almost your whole adult life, just gone for something you did not do? And it's just kind of interesting that, I'm so desensitized to these stories because I've been seeing them my entire life.
Yeah.
And that really got me because I was like, oh, see, it's not just us. There's a white man in Wisconsin. Honestly, you feel like the law would have his back and they would go and find the true culprit and things like that. But no, indeed, they sometimes just really do want to snatch up somebody off the street and just, we're done here.
Yeah.
So, I think that was a big angle to it too, of people who already knew about the justice system, and you thought about it in one way, and then you see this and you're like, oh, okay. And you can tell from certain audiences I would see online and how their reactions to it would be like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Or, oh, okay, all right, because I know they do this. I know they be putting evidence on people. But didn't know they did it to them out in the middle of the country. So yeah, that was a real interesting cultural like focal point for that time when it came out. And I thought that was really interesting to see.
All right, so moving into my next grouping of documentaries, I wanted to talk about three that I believe are also all on Netflix, or were, or will be, or can be at some point. So it's Don't F with Cats, What Jennifer Did, and The Girl in the Picture. So, Don't F with Cats is about Luca Magnotta. And he started posting like horrifying animal cruelty videos online. And a group of online detectives, including two in particular, track him across the internet, and their investigation unravels with shocking murder that plays out like a horror film online. And so, breaking that one down, so he posted his first video in 2010. And this, by the way, this story, it originated out of Canada because I believe Luca is from Canada and lived in Canada at the time. So he posted a disturbing video of himself killing kittens in 2010, and there were outraged people who formed a Facebook group to identify him, and they basically crowdsourced clues from like every frame of what he posted. And so the group actually ended up analyzing objects, shadows, and background details like cigarette packs, wall outlets, blankets, even a vacuum cleaner model to pinpoint his location and identity. They learned to match small clues like a special yellow vacuum in an apartment layout to online sales photos and maps. And so then, when he posted new, more disturbing clips, including one involving a snake, they realized he was baiting them, seeking fame and attention. Their digital trail eventually led them to him, and he was a narcissistic Canadian model obsessed with fame, movies, and online notoriety. And they found his alias accounts. They linked to fan pages he created for himself and videos referencing film scenes like Basic Instinct. And then in 2012, he ended up releasing a video depicting the real murder of June Lin, who was a Chinese national student in Montreal. Their findings, including IP data, alias patterns, and timestamps, helped law enforcement confirm his identity and track him to Berlin, where he was arrested. That one was a wild ride as well, obviously. But yeah, what was most fascinating in that one is how this group of people who didn't know each other just came together online and were able to take like the littlest details and figure out where he was, like all of these things just from things that you would never like pay attention to or think were significant in any way. So,
So this is one of the ones I did not watch. My biggest thing for me was, and the reason why I didn't watch it, because I saw it crop up. My Netflix algorithm tried to give me this one because I saw it was a big discourse online too. So I think they were just like, "Hey, this is popular. Watch this." I didn't know until we were kind of prepping for this episode that the man killed a person. Because to be honest, like, of course, love my pets, love my cats that I did have, but I was not really feeling the original premise. Obviously, the title of the show, Don't Mess with Cats. And I'm kind of like, clearly we know psychologically if you are somebody who's willing to hurt small animals, you will eventually it's like the gateway drug to becoming the serial killer. And I was kind of like, okay, that's cool. But it really, I guess, to me, I didn't really care for it or watch it because I knew the semblance of all these people were doing, GeoGuessr, essentially, the game, and really tracking down this guy because he killed a bunch of like cats. And it's like, yeah, killing cats is wrong, obviously, but y'all had all this energy for some cats. Yeah, there's missing black children like right now. I'm missing native children right now. And y'all put your energy towards this guy killing cats. It's like, I was kind of like, okay. Like, I guess it's a very Reddit thing to do. That you use all these man hours to like this guy who's doing stuff to cats when we have like full blown serial killers in Houston right now.
yeah.
Find that guy. what are we doing?
Yeah.
There's bodies popping up in Austin, Texas, like right now as we're taping it, and now in Houston, it's clearly somebody like serial killers on the loose in Houston. Find those people. We keep on pulling black women out of lakes and rivers. Where's the energy for that? So that's what kind of ticks me off a lot about this genre and a lot about these things is because let's be real, there's missing white women, there's cats getting messed with, and we have all the energy and time in the world to go and track down these folks. But we don't. We have these crimes happening in neighborhoods all over, and we have trans native women going missing in our backyard.
Yeah.
And where's the energy for that? So that's kind of one of those things of when I'm just like, okay, it's horrible, it's bad. But this horrible and bad stuff I grew up seeing all the time in my neighborhood, and it was like none of y'all were gonna have the energy to find the people doing some of this stuff. So why should I be spending my 2 hours watching this?
Yeah.
Like giving time to this or buying, like buying my subscription to use the server time to, watch this. So that's kind of my thing that like this was one of the main things of why I'm kind of like, true crime, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess. Now, cult documentary, I'm right there with you. I've watched all of them. I know all about Scientology from somebody who never stepped foot into a Scientology center. You got me with a cult documentary. But true crime, which cult documentaries are true crime as well, basically. Yeah, I don't care about Gabby Petito. I'm sorry. Like, stuff happened to her. Yeah. White women go missing in Italy all the time. Actually, Italian women go missing in Italy all the time, but we only care when it was an American one going missing or somebody gets killed in Mexico or something like that. Cartels are killing people in Mexico every day. And really doesn't seem like y'all got energy for that. At least on the internet that I see. Maybe my feed is very North American centric, but I don't think so. So, yeah, that's like was a bit like bits and pieces in my psychological, like my psychology into being like, do I really care? So is this something I want to invest time into? So yeah.
Okay.
What's the next one?
So the next one is What Jennifer Did, and it's a story that happened in 2010 in Ontario, Canada. Jennifer Pan staged a home invasion with 3 hired men to kill her parents. Her father survived despite being shot in the face. Her mother was killed instantly, and Jennifer claimed she had been tied up and helpless while the intruders broke in, demanding money, but the crime scene told a different story.
I did watch this one with you. This was interesting because this was, if I'm not mistaken, the same folks who did American Nightmare. This was like the
I
follow-up.
don't think, no, because this wasn't
No?
American. It was Canadian.
Well,
So yeah, this wasn't
no,
the
I thought
same.
it was the same filmmakers who did
No,
it.
because
No?
they only focused on American ones, American crimes.
Oh, I thought that wasn't really the name of a series. I
It
thought that was just.
was.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
So did they have
It
a
was called
follow-up?
American Murder. Is that series?
Is that one? Oh, okay. Then somebody did this one because I remember I was into watching this one because I watched the documentary of their previous work, and I know they also brought that to Netflix. So I'm sure it was somebody who was working on Netflix. That's how they got me in the door because I was like, oh, okay, I did like the first one, so I'm gonna give this one a shot, even though I didn't know anything about this story. But this story is kind of really interesting because I think this one was interesting because it played off of Jennifer really being this like small, unassuming Asian woman. And it's like, oh, could she possibly be like, I wouldn't say the ringleader, but essentially like the leader of this whole like crime? And I think that could also, I wanted them to kind of explore that, because if, I feel like, honestly, it happened in Canada, which does have a pretty good sized Asian population, actually, of Chinese and Japanese descended people in it, along with some native. But I feel like this story would have happened a little bit differently, or went in a certain way, if it happened in America in a bunch of different cities. Like, if this would have happened in a San Francisco, totally different story.
In what way?
And I think in a way of, that's another big Asian population, and there has been things that have happened ethnically in San Francisco, especially around 2020, those type of deals. And, you have to watch that documentary to really kind of get the full breadth. But essentially, it was, oh, these thugs broke into their house. I don't understand what's going on. She was with the thugs. She was the thug. She was the thug.
Yeah.
They were thuglets.
She was queen thug, yeah.
She was queen boss thug. And so, but, it kind of plays into those things of, oh, Asian women are submissive. Surely she couldn't be the one that controlled, ran this crime syndicate. Yeah, she was. So, it's funny how I feel like in certain contexts, somebody would have came into that situation of, you see all this footage of her getting interviewed and all of that. And it's like, well, Jennifer, your story is not fully matching up. No, if I would have got a, say, Angel, and Angel, I mean by Angel, the actress from Angel and Kevin on Stage podcast. Here's the thing, check out the podcast. It's one of my favorite. But if she would have walked in, she'd been like, this baby lying right here. She wouldn't have wasted 2-3 minutes, because she would have been like, this girl ain't right. But I think the fact that you have this white male detective, and he's just like, oh, this girl wouldn't hurt a fly. She, what, $180 wet? It was like, yeah, but you notice she wasn't the one that pulled the trigger. She was the one that talked to folks. That's real boss stuff. I didn't touch no drugs, no guns, no nothing. I'm clean, right? This is real mafia boss style, where it's like, hey, I don't know nothing about nothing. And she got busted in a big way. But she really slipped up, because I feel like when you watch it, she has an air of, oh, I'm about to slide off on this. I'm about to get away with this. And it just didn't really, she just wasn't about that action. Like, and ultimately in, she had the plans. She had the idea. She just wasn't gangster enough to really actually pull it all the way off. And you'll see that in real time when you watch that documentary, of where you're like, you can see where you like, okay, she's starting to crack.
Yeah. And it was, like when I looked back into it, first of all, the director was involved in American Murder.
Ah, okay.
So that was that tie.
Yeah.
And then it was actually during the interrogation, the police interrogation of Jennifer, that like they knew immediately.
Yeah.
But then it was confirmed with her cell phone records showing that she was texting during the time of the, supposed attack, and everything just fell apart. And then like everything that she said happened, there was no signs of it when they were investigating the actual crime scene. So.
Yeah, because it's clearly just a college kid thinking, oh, I've watched enough movies.
Yeah.
I think I can get away with it. Like, we got an airtight alibi, y'all. And it's like, no. Because I want to say that detective, if I remember correctly, he was like 20-something years. Like, as a detective, he was well seasoned. So it was
Yeah,
kind
I
of one
don't
of
remember
those.
like all those details, but yeah, I just
Yeah.
remember they knew right away. They were like,
Yeah, because I definitely remember that footage more than anything else of the interrogation footage, and you're like, oh yeah, she can't, she's not gonna pull this off.
And then the last one in this section would be the girl in the picture, and so this one is it's so involved, but basically, a woman named Suzanne lives an entire lifetime under stolen identities after being kidnapped by Franklin Delano Floyd. Her death unravels decades of lies, abuse, and institutional neglect, and it's a terrible case. Just what she went through, and just how she had to live under all of these different identities. Meanwhile, like she was kidnapped as a small child and like forced to live with her kidnapper, posing as her father. And he, definitely abused her mentally, emotionally, sexually. And it turns out like when she was in high school, they have footage of interviews with people that she was in high school with. She was brilliant. She was literally on her way to like a technical university. She was going to be in the Air Force. Like she was graduating top of her class. Like she was, bright, beautiful young woman who was just in the worst situation possible, but nobody really knew it.
Yeah. This was another one I didn't actually directly watch, but I was very curious. So I did see a general synopsis of it, and you watched that obviously with me just to kind of
Yeah, the
just get
synopsis.
an idea. Now, I would like you to talk about the general how this documentary essentially unravels itself, because even in the just overall
Yeah,
synopsis, the way it was like told, I had to stop it
yeah,
a couple times and be like, okay,
yeah.
I got my Game of Thrones chart right now, and
Yeah.
I am trying
I
to
mean, it's
figure how
definitely one of
all of this
those.
comes
Yeah, yeah,
together.
yeah. So like they have to tell the story like in a certain order because, this story starts in essentially the 70s and it goes through decades through the 2000s and like they had to tell certain pieces of the story in like kind of like a reverse order to not give away certain things too soon, but also to add these different layers that you kind of needed for context reasons. But like when he was watching the recap, he was like, "Wait," and I was like, "You got to watch the whole thing, and then I can explain anything that doesn't make sense after that." But they have to tell it in a certain order because this is like kind of the order that over the years they got the information or figured out what was going on, and then also there's so many people involved that you kind of have to like piece it together in a certain way for it even to make sense. Like if you were to just tell the story like in like it couldn't necessarily be told chronologically because there's so many other things that kind of intertwine in. And then for I guess like drama and to build suspense, you kind of have to build up to certain things. So like, you know, it wasn't just her that was involved in the crime. It was her child who also was affected. And so like the story kind of jumps from him to her, back to him, back to her. Like, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. I would say though, once I got the timeline correct, this definitely was a candidate of, because how many episodes? I did want to ask that. Is it like a
I
one shot
no, I
thing, or
think
was it
it was
several
maybe
episodes?
like three,
And see,
might have been four.
low key, that could have been an email. Like if the
I
way
mean,
they
but there
presented was
was
very
so much to
creative.
tell.
Well, yeah, it
Yeah.
was very creative, but I think if they would have told it in a
This
full
was
chronological
one
order,
that, to me, I think
that would have been an hour and a
it
half.
made sense for the. Yeah, but I mean, yeah,
But they
I get
wanted to
it.
tell it in the way that I think I felt like the focus was going around the subject in a way. But when
Yeah,
you
they were kind of burying the lead
yeah, because
to
when you kind
tell.
of like are like, oh, it's really this guy and he does all of this,
Yeah,
it would have been a quicker story to tell.
right.
But since the fact that we were learning it in the way it was told as the detectives were learning things and then having to gather all these stories across the different states. Now, the biggest thing I pulled from this was how in the world was it so easy just 40 years ago, 50 years ago, to just change a name and change states? And nobody, well, there's a new John in town. I guess it's John killed 3 people 2 states over. Now, of course, this is before the advent of the internet, but we still had social security numbers. We had, how did this man go under the radar for this long? How did she go under the radar for this long? Because there's a ton of name changes, a
Yeah.
ton of state changes, and it's like, wow. How in the world did these folks just really go like
Well, and
on
to
for
me,
so
like, I
long?
don't know, but I feel like just thinking about it right now, if you can get away with something one time, it empowers you
Oh,
to go bigger and
for
bolder the
sure,
next time
for sure.
and have the confidence that you can get away with it again. And I feel like, more stories that I've heard in the like 60s and 70s, it feels like as long as you were, well, if you were a white man and you were a confident white man, there's not going to be a lot of questions about the details that you're presenting. If you say you're here to enroll your child in school, okay,
Right,
there's nothing worried about that.
right.
And you have a full, like, fake birth certificate and whatever, you know. During those times, they didn't have much to, like, and especially if you're, like, in a small town, they don't have much to dispute what you're telling them. You're new to town with your daughter. Yeah, let's enroll her in school. And yeah, you're her father. Like, there's no questions asked. I mean, I think like we came from there was a time of no questions asked, and there was no way to verify certain information. So it was
Right.
like, yep, okay, yeah, let's go. Like, what you're telling me is true. There was no, if there was no reason to doubt, what somebody was saying, and they came in confident and looking like they were somebody, then okay.
I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time is Catch Me If You Can. So, and that's
Yeah.
essentially the the supposed true story, because there are a lot of people that argue like actual FBI agents and whatnot are like, nah, that didn't happen how he said that happened. Which, I like to believe my Hollywood magic. Leo and Tom did a great job on that movie, but I would say it did kind of shine a light to me in my young brain watching it. Wow, back in the 60s, they didn't ask no. This guy was literally washing checks in a tub and just like putting it right through a typewriter and just be like, okay, cool. And just showing up in a pilot suit that he just got.
Yeah.
And they were just like, well, sure, yeah. And he's like, well, you
Hey, if
seem to
you look the
lose this.
part,
Can you? Yeah. And it's
and
like,
if you're charismatic enough, and you flash a smile, people will say yes. That's what I got from all that.
but they would have told no to my grandfather coming in with a legitimate business and
Yeah.
having all his paperwork,
Yeah.
trying
Of
to get a
course.
loan.
Yeah. Welcome.
America.
Welcome. So we're gonna take a break, and we'll be back to talk about cult of personality documentaries.
Oh, now this is, we said cult. They got my attention. All right, guys, we'll see you here in a second. And we're back. So, cult of personality.
Yes.
Now we're getting into some of the true crime that I do watch. So what you got for us?
Sorry. Okay, so cult of personality documentary. So we're gonna focus on Tiger King, The Vow, added in Dirty Pop, and Sins of Our Mother. So Tiger King. I think everybody watched it. Everybody
Pretty
watched
much.
it. It's the story of Joe Exotic, who calls himself the Tiger King, and he ran a private zoo, and he basically waged a chaotic war against Carol Baskin,
Carol
who
Baskin.
was an animal rights activist in Florida, and it just completely devolves into chaos. But I wanted to feature. There were like several follow-up documentaries, and I think we watched all of them. But there was, the original, which was Tiger King, Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. There was Tiger King 2 that came out the next year. Then there was Tiger King, the Doc Antle story, which we watched as well, and that one gets a lot darker. But then also, Investigation Discovery had a series called Joe Exotic Before He Was King that kind of tells his origins. Discovery Plus in 2021 did one called Carol Baskin's Cage Fight about her side and the activism that she's involved in. And then Peacock in 2022 did like a fictionalized retelling called Joe versus Carol. So,
Okay, I know I didn't watch Before He Was King.
yeah.
I did not watch.
The Carol Baskin.
Well, and see, that's the one that I'm like, did I watch that one?
Yeah.
Because which one was the one
Because I feel like we watched
everybody was like, oh, I didn't know her second husband, like, and her were kind of on some freak nasty type of situation. Was that a part of that one, or was that inside of the Doc Antle story?
Well, was that part of part 2? Honestly, I don't remember.
It might have been a part of part 2 because I know it more. They came back to her.
Yeah, I feel like that may have been part of part 2.
And that's when her now husband started talking. And we were, you could see like everybody online was like, yo, do y'all all picking this up?
I think that was part of the second one.
Yeah, that he a little kind of a little weird than we thought he was out of the first one. Because they didn't really show him too much. Because we were focusing on, did she kill her first husband? Or what happened to her first husband? Of course, with Joe and his claims.
Right.
So, she came out.
It was a mess.
Looking crazy. But
that whole
shout
thing.
out to Joe. Shout out to Carol. They got us through the first half of the pandemic.
Well, there's that.
Because that was great entertainment to at least distract us while everything was closing down.
There was that.
Yeah, Netflix was there, and I'm sure I felt like they just were happening to just throw it up. It just so happened to be that week. Really just hit at that right time where we like, what is going on? And, little did we know, most of America and the world was going to get into some weird stuff when we were just on lockdown. So,
the next one that I wanted to talk about is The Vow. So that one is on HBO, and it's all about the NXIVM cult. If you don't know what that is, there are so many documentaries, and I think I watched most, if not all of these, that I'm going to list in a second here. But Basically, it's the leader was Keith Raniere, and he had this like whole belief system and kind of turned it into like this weird pyramid scheme type. I don't know. It is definitely a cult, and they, people would bring other people in, and they would have to basically like tell all their secrets, and it would be like a form of collateral that the leaders of the cult would hold against the members, and that was like their like your way of showing your like complete devotion to the group. And it was all in the guy like disguised as like a self empowerment like slash like leadership courses, but they really just like took people's secrets and like preyed on them and manipulated them after they figured out like what their weaknesses were. Essentially, is what happened. And then, but a lot of like high profile and even like famous people got involved in it. Most notably, Allison Mack. And yeah, so it was like two former members. So the vow focused on two former members, Mark Vicente and Sarah Edmondson, who basically exposed the cult leader. And there were several other documentaries. So Stars did one called Seduced Inside the NXIVM Cult, which I watched that one. And that was actually, the focus of it is India Oxenberg, who was one of the cult members, and it tells her personal story, and it's kind of what happened inside NXIVM from her point of view. And then there was one by Investigation Discovery called The Lost Women of NXIVM, and they talk about like some dark allegations and unexplained deaths connected to the cult. There was one on, I think it was on Peacock, but it was like from Oxygen called Unveiled Surviving NXIVM, talking about like survivor recovery and justice. And then there was a podcast done by the CBC called Escaping NXIVM, and basically it was a lot of interviews with whistleblowers. But yeah, I remember like in 2021, 2022, I like really ended up watching like all of those because I was just so fascinated by it. I had heard of it, but I didn't know exactly what it was. Like I heard of the cult NXIVM, but I didn't know exactly what it was. So after I watched The Vow, I was just like, what? And then I kept like, I was basically keeping up with like in real time, like what was going on with like people's trials and different things, and how, until he like he got convicted, and he is currently in prison. So it was a lot.
Yeah.
But it really opened my eyes to like just how like how people get involved in cults and how you get like just drawn in. Ugh. Like I feel like everybody in some respect, and some way more than others, some people way more than other, are susceptible to cult activity and behavior, because at our cores we all want to be accepted, and we all want to be a part of something, and we all want to feel like we have a group, we have you know people who have our back, and people who understand us. And like there's a point where that turns from being like a group of friends and people who are concerned about you and love you, to people who are going to take your deepest, darkest secrets and weaknesses and use them to control you.
I, you know, I, so usually for cult documentaries, I usually watch most of them just because I'm very interested in the psychology, just because honestly, I'm one that I've come in contact with certain cults, more the ones that are not directly religious affiliated, because I think a lot of people misunderstand that sometimes cults aren't around a religion, but it
And this one
becomes
wasn't around a religion.
right. It can come around a obsession in something with a theme, obviously around it, but then it becomes your religion in a way, and that one, and I am going to get around to watching these just because it is on my list of certain cults and things that I'm just curious about. But the biggest thing for me, though, about Nexium, I did listen to a last podcast on the left about it, and they went into detail about it. And I was kind of like, okay, this feels like somebody who may have dabbled in Scientology or, knew some people or whatever, because it seems like they took certain things out that would be now triggers being, in the modern times from psychology, like that they use in Scientology, and like reverse engineered it in a way. And it's like very interesting of like, oh, this is interesting of where we're getting to a point of cults in America or cults in general of where you can almost do piecemeal things and capture a different audience. It's almost in the fact of doing like A/B testing and marketing, of where it's like, I wouldn't get some of these people if I started to talk about God or something in this interest, like over here. But if I can essentially become their God in a way through, Erewhon smoothies and yoga, that would, that would get these people in the door. And I could still do the same tried and true methods once I get you in, but it has to be a different skin. It has to have a different theme to it to get you in the door.
So I forgot to mention, so the backstory about Keith Raniere. So he was a child prodigy. Like he could read. Well, these were his claims that were never verified, but he claimed that he could read by age 2 and had a near perfect IQ. And he ended up attending like a polytechnic institute in '82, and he had a degree in physics, math, and biology. But even classmates during that time described him as arrogant and manipulative. But in the early '80s, this is the part that I forgot, like, is kind of a big thing about him and how he came up with even the idea for it. In the '80s, he launched a direct sales company called Consumers Byline, and it grew like super quick. But then in '96, it was shut down for being a pyramid scheme. And
Good old Cutco.
then he like rebranded himself as like a philosopher and a self-help guru, and that's when he started NXIVM, and he marketed it as a personal development company that offered pricey workshops through its executive success programs. And so basically he used like motivational branding, but it was essentially like a hierarchical cult structure. And then it just like devolved from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And see, that's, yeah, I think the crazy part, when we start getting to like the cult aspects of some of these true crime documentaries, is one of those things of where you're sitting there and you're like, oh, wow. Like, it gives you a peek into people that are, well, essentially sociopaths. But then it kind of does show that everybody has a certain, well, not even everybody, certain people that are susceptible have certain rhythms to things. And if you crack out that code of, I know how to grab these people, it, I feel like for a lot of these people who run these cults, it's really a game. You're running like lemmings right? It's a very old video game reference, but basically you were leading these followers around. I guess Cult of the Lamb would be a more relevant one for modern gamers that are watching, but essentially, you know, the fact of finding those triggers and finding how you can, like, how to push the limits to a certain extent. What can you do and get away with in this group of people that are so devoted to this one thing you've based this all around, which is usually the person that started the cult? It's very fascinating because that takes, honestly, you have to be a very great orator. You have to know how to speak to people and like convince people and just be very, your personality and your charisma points have to be sky high for this. Usually I've noticed that most of the people are either conventionally attractive or they're people that are like so have like a really an aura around them that you can even tell. I don't know for some people out there, but for me, I can see certain people, even that have been long dead before I've even been born, and I can just see footage of them or see photographs, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to understand why you got away with killing those 8 women. It's not like you just look amazing, but there's something about you or something how they move, how they talk when you watch footage of them, and you're like, okay, I get it now. I see why you kept on luring these folks in, even though honestly, if you didn't have that going on, you probably would got a drink thrown in your face, and that woman would be still alive today. But yeah, it's very interesting to see those kind of stories and see those people and be like, oh, interesting. As
Yep.
a certified people watcher, so
Our next one is Dirty Pop, which is the boy band scam on Netflix, talking about Lou Pearlman. And Lou Pearlman built NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys and a lot of other well-known, recognizable boy bands, and then basically used their fame to hide one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in U.S. history. So the story of Lou Pearlman, he attended Queens College, and after college, he started a blimp leasing business. Yes, if you remember back in the 90s, back in the 80s, there would be blimps that would actually be like flying in the sky, and they would advertise certain businesses, and sometimes they would have banners like coming off of them that would advertise, for the business. So he started leasing these blimps, and he claimed to manage airships for companies like MetLife and SeaWorld, and many of those claims turned out to be fabricated or exaggerated. But then in the early 90s, he pivoted to music, and he was inspired by the profitability of New Kids on the Block. So he formed Transcontinental Records and Transcontinental Entertainment, and soon after created and managed the Backstreet Boys in '93, followed by NSYNC, O-Town, LFO, and Aaron Carter. These groups exploded into global fame, but behind the scenes, Perlman had structured contracts that gave himself nearly all of the profits. So, in the now famous first royalty checks, band members found they were paid less than minimum wage despite selling millions of albums. The Ponzi scheme, where that came into play was, while he was building this music empire, he ran an elaborate investment fraud operation. So he sold shares in fake companies, including this transcontinental airline travel services that he started, which promised steady returns from aircraft leases that didn't exist. Over 2 decades, he defrauded more than 300 million from investors and banks, one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in U.S. history. And the scam collapsed in 2006 when the Orlando Sentinel exposed inconsistencies in his business filings. He fled the U.S. and was arrested in Bali, Indonesia in 2007. In 2008, he was convicted of conspiracy, money laundering, and making false statements and sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. And he ended up dying in 2016 from cardiac arrest while he was still incarcerated in Miami.
Yeah, I watched this one with you. I was kind of sitting there when they really were talking about, yeah, we were traveling and yeah, we just got these small checks. And I was kind of sitting there like, maybe he knew the folks that he knew that he could pull this stuff on. Because low key, do you really see him pulling this on Casey and JoJo? Or, anybody that probably would come in there with a baseball bat into his office like, Playboy, what is this? Like, I know, I have access to the Billboard 100. I can see we are selling out. What is this check? Like, he had to kind of think in the back of his head. Obviously, we're not in his head. He's gone and dead now. But I kind of felt like he had to just be like, these guys, they off the street, which, some of the Backstreet Boys members were literally pretty much almost nearly on the street when he found them. That I think he was just like, they gonna be happy enough to be here. They gonna be happy enough to be on TRL. I ain't gotta pay these fools nothing. Because otherwise, they really gonna be in the back streets in Miami, somewhere, Orlando, where he's finding these folks. And it's like amazing that the bigger folks that I would want to talk, especially he's dealing with NSYNC, would be JT. And to see what he had to say, because he already had previous, well, and I believe, I want to say maybe AJ, a couple other folks had like Disney experience and already industry experience before the group. So I'm like, he had to know to pay them good, right? They already had like managers. Because I want to say Justin Timberlake's mom was like his manager at first or something like that when he was a part of the Mickey Mouse Club and all that with Britney and all of them. That was well before the groups. So it was like, was it some people that got ripped off that happened to be in the documentary as well to say, yeah, he didn't pay me nothing? Or was it just like he really tried to pull that on some folks who already were, in the industry machine, was my question coming from it. Because they didn't have everybody participate. So I'm kind of sitting there like, he must have been smart enough to know, who to play and who not to, for him to have that scam go on for so long, especially during the height of their fame. So yeah, that was one thing I was kind of like, oh, I feel like this story's not done. I need to know for some other folks of like, were they in on it? Right? Did he kind of tell them, hey, here you go. Don't be telling everybody else in the group how much you make. Or, especially we had stars. We had the forerunners of each group, for Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. Usually in groups, folks are going to know like, hey man, I'm the draw.
Yeah.
Brian's going to at least be like, I'm the draw. What's up? Like I can take this solo if I need to. So, yeah, that one felt undone just because it was made so after the fact, after he passed.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Well, I mean, and then the fact that he passed makes it undone.
That too, because it's just
because there's still no justice for,
exactly
what happened.
Because that money go. So, yeah, I find that really interesting. So.
And my next one, which I've paired with another one. So, it's Sins of Our Mother, which was about Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. And I paired that with a newer case, which was Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Franke, which is kind of like they just had, the trial maybe last year. But so Sins of Our Mother, that was a Netflix documentary about Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. And I remember when I was hearing about this case when they were when she was going to trial, but I didn't know anything about it, and so I ended up watching the documentary, and I was like, oh. Basically, so Lori Vallow, she grew up Mormon, was like deeply devoted to her faith, and she had multiple marriages and children. Her children were Colby, Tylee Ryan, and adopted son JJ. And so she ended up meeting this guy named Chad Daybell and in 2018. And he was this self-published author who wrote apocalyptic novels tied to Mormon prophecies. They developed an intense relationship and began preaching that the world would soon end, claiming to receive divine revelations, speak to angels, identify people as dark spirits or zombies. And Lori became convinced that certain loved ones, including her own children, were possessed and no longer truly alive. So in 2019, Lori's husband, Charles, was shot and killed by her brother, Alex, who claimed self defense. And they talk about that in the documentary. They give like a full rundown of exactly what happened. But a few months later, Lori moved to Rexburg, Idaho with her children. And soon after, both Tylee, who was 16, and JJ, who was 7, vanished. Concerned relatives were asking where the children were, and Lori and Chad just insisted that they were safe and happy.
Message on your phone from Nicholas Sample.
Fast forward
Say, hey, Matt.
to June 2020, after a national search, and authorities discovered the children's remains were buried on Chad Daybell's property in Idaho. So that was, yeah, that was like the big revelation. Chad and Lori were arrested in 2020 and charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, and grand theft for collecting the kids' social security benefits after their deaths. In 23, Lori Vallow was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Chad is still awaiting trial as of this year. And I kind of put that with Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Franke, which is a Hulu documentary series that examined her. She was a popular momfluencer in Utah and ended up arrested for child abuse. She rose to fame in the mid-2010s as a creator of the YouTube channel 8 Passengers, which chronicled her life as a Mormon mother of 6 in Springville, Utah. Her videos were like strict parenting lessons, family vlogs, chore systems, and discipline methods. They attracted over 2 million subscribers at their peak. She built a brand around tough love parenting and often promoted harsh punishments like food deprivation and isolation as moral lessons. Her fans saw her as like the ultimate momfluencer, but critics saw warnings of emotional abuse. And then fast forward to 2020, and she partnered with Jody Hildebrandt, which was a therapist and founder of a counseling group called Connections Classroom, which preached radical accountability and obedience through religious doctrine. Together, they began offering paid online parenting courses that emphasized control, punishment, and the rejection of dark influences. Ruby slowly cut off contact with her husband and her older children, isolating herself and her younger kids with Hildebrandt's orbit. Then on August 30th, 2023, Ruby was arrested in Ivins, Utah after one of her malnourished children escaped from Jody Hildebrandt's home and asked a neighbor for food and water. Police discovered another child in a similar condition. Both had open wounds, duct tape marks, and sign of prolonged abuse. Ruby and Hildebrandt were charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse. In February 2024, Ruby pled guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse and was sentenced to up to 30 years in prison. Jody pled guilty and received an identical sentence. Ruby's husband, Kevin, was not charged and has since spoken publicly about being manipulated and cut off from his children during the abuse. Both of those were a lot, especially because they involved children, and just disgusting. I have no other words to describe it. Anything involving children, I'm just like, children are innocent. They do not have any way to defend themselves, protect themselves. Like, parents are literally their protectors, their voice, their, the ones that are just, supposed to be the ones to shield them from the very things that these people were doing to their own children. It's just, there's no words.
Yeah, I think I've talked about this before, possibly when we were covering The Pit. But me, that's my one thing. It's hard to watch things about, unfortunate circumstances happening to children. That's kind of one of my triggers when I'm like,
Yeah.
I might not sit through this.
Yeah.
Now, given, in a way, I'll probably watch something when it's like fantastical horror movies. Once again, it's spooky season. Okay, whatever. Timmy fell down a drain by a clown. I'm good with that one. It's when it's like, or the whole It series in itself, because it all revolves mainly around children, at least in the first half. But when it comes to like even medical dramas, ER, The Pit, some of the cop shows that we watch, and I'm kind of like, ooh, yeah, I don't like this. And then, of course, when I'm watching these things with you with true crime, I'm like, yeah, I don't like this. So that is one of my triggers with that. That's why sometimes I have to kind of pull out of some of the true crime stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo,
I get it.
can't do it. But for that one, I did watch some of the, can't remember the name of it, The Mother in Utah with,
Ruby Franke.
yeah, Ruby Franke, which
Yeah.
what I feel like is like her lesbian lover, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. Because
No, yeah. It was pretty.
she moved in
Yeah.
and made the husband move out. So, and I mean, not necessarily like they pushed him out. They kind of just picked up and left, but it was just kind of one of those like
They did push him out, though.
they did to a certain extent. I do
Like-
remember watching that part and being like, "Oh, brother, you should have." I mean, it's not brother with an A, but brother with an ER. Like, what you doing, big dog? Like, don't you see this? Like, see this happening? Like, she's starting to sleep in her room. Come on, dog.
He was, like, under the spell, too.
Yeah.
Because they had him doing the, like, accountability, whatever, with her. And
Right.
so, yeah, he was right in it.
I think he got seduced by the money. I think if this would have happened
But he
and
was,
she wasn't as
like,
big.
they had, like, he's a software engineer. They had money.
Yeah, they
it wasn't
had-
necessarily that.
But you know what? Okay, I'm a software engineer. To give y'all a little bit of the background, right? I make a decent amount of money a year. I work for a big tech company. It's funny enough though, it's still not the same of her having 2 million views.
Yeah.
Well, not views, but 2 million like subscribers.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good chunk of money. And honestly, like, so say you get 2 million views
Yeah.
and it's for whatever it is, mom content, cooking, whatever brings in 2 million views. Your output of actual like work is not going to feel the same as me, and you may be pulling in even more money than I do as as that. So it's going to be like, whoa, you're not killing yourself, because IT is beyond 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like around the clock. You might be on call. That's why majority of folks in IT are on salary, because whatever's happening in China, you never know. You might need to hop on and figure that out at any time of the day. But when it's kind of like, you're an influencer, yes, you may be working some weird hours, but it doesn't feel the same as like somebody who's really is clocking in and clocking out on a white collar job. And you're just like, wow, y'all still kind of having fun though. Like, I wish I was having fun. And maybe I need to figure out what's going on over here now. If I put my expertise with this, and maybe we'll do some stuff. And yeah, I can see why he was just kind of like, yeah, I make some decent money. We live in Utah, which is not that expensive.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, but you're pulling in 2 million views. So you're kind of sitting there like, wow, she got something. Because that's nothing to sneeze at. And we've seen people who have 1 million followers. And you're like, okay, that's your full-time job.
Yeah.
So you got double that. It's like, okay, this is starting to be a business. Like, you
No, it
know.
absolutely is a business.
So I think that was the thing, was he was probably sitting there like, well, yeah, let's see if we can run it up to 4. And then if we run it up to 4, we're making more than if we had 2 IT jobs together. Like, yeah, we're more than likely probably millionaires for sure.
Yeah.
Let alone whatever else you're selling, here, there, and everywhere else. I'm sure you're going to have a website, have merch if you have that much of a capture audience. And then also, too, that also kind of plays into, obviously, as Utah, Mormons have a propensity to be an influencer based on some of the things they value inside of that religion and that church. Hence, a lot of people, if you didn't know, on YouTube, not us, we're from Colorado, are in the Mormon church that you may not even know. I've recently found out some of the people I follow are actually Mormon, and they are dealing in things that have nothing to do remotely with their religion. And it just, after I started watching some videos, it kind of makes sense of what in the church they make you do at a young age leans into influencer content and how you document your day and how you share that with others. And of course, the big thing is being a, wow, I'm drawing a blank, a missionary for the religion. So obviously you're just talking to people that you don't know and you're presenting a point to them. And that leans really well into being an influencer. So yeah, I was like, oh, once I saw some videos on that and explaining those things, and then watching some of this documentary with you, I was like, oh, of course. I was like,
So looking it up, at her height, Ruby Frankie's height, her net worth was between 3 and 4 million, and her husband at that same time was making around like 150 to 170.
yeah, as usual, software engineer in IT usually would. So it's like, forget my job.
Yeah.
Like, we're all in, baby. Like, let's ride this. Because, yeah, compared to how much, she's making, he's almost nearly making, like, minimum wage.
Yeah.
So,
But you'll all be happy to know her net worth is 0 because all of her assets were frozen or liquidated. So
as it should be. As it should be.
So let's transition into our final segment, talking about why women can't stop watching true crime.
This is the whole basis of the whole episode.
So I just want to give some stats. 70% of true crime podcast listeners are women. And I came across this, and this makes so much sense. There's a researcher named, excuse me. I thought I was going to sneeze or cough, and I yawned. But there's a researcher named Amanda Vicari, and she did research on women using true crime as psychological self-defense, and she came up with the threat rehearsal theory. And so Dr. Amanda Vicari, a psychology professor at Illinois Wesleyan University, has spent years studying gender differences in true crime consumption. Her research showed that women are far more likely than men to watch, read, or listen to true crime, and not because they enjoy violence, but because they use it as a form of mental preparation and survival training. So the theory says that the threat rehearsal The threat rehearsal theory proposes that many women engage with true crime stories as a psychological safety mechanism. Watching, listening, or reading about violent crimes, especially those involving female victims, allows women to simulate dangerous situations in their minds. By mentally rehearsing what they would do, don't go in the house, call for help, notice the red flags, they build perceived control over threats in real life. So, in other words, true crime acts as self defense training for the brain. Yeah, so in her studies, women were significantly more likely than men to prefer true crime media that included survival strategies on how victims escaped or were found, motives of the killer, warnings or prevention tips. Many respondents reported that consuming true crime made them feel more prepared and less naive about danger, even though it could also increase anxiety. And so, yeah, it was essentially saying that women use true crime to reclaim agency in spaces that dismiss women's intuition.
For me, that kind of psychological theory that Amanda was kind of getting at would be almost similar in the vein to me. Well, let's see. Okay, let me throw out an example real quick and see what you think about it. And this is just not me, but if
Hypothetically.
I would say, yeah, hypothetically, me as a viewer of watching literal self-defense videos, like kung fu videos,
Okay.
or watching people train martial arts. I've never been into a dojo. Don't know where one is. I'm just sitting here all day and watching instructional videos about martial arts, and then I step outside and so for some reason somebody wants to aggressively attack me. Do you think my odds of consuming this content would actually make me my likelihood of self-defense be higher than if I didn't watch it?
Over time, absolutely.
And why do you think so? I
And
haven't had formal training.
now,
I'm just watching this passively.
over time, well, I don't know if that's the best example because you have to also take into account women just in general are vulnerable in our society in more than physically, financially, emotionally, definitely physically, sexually. Like there's so many different like avenues that you can take that in. And so to hear women who were in situations that we potentially are in all the time, every day, whether it be a dating situation, a work situation, a situation in your church, a situation, just like different situations that people have been in that you can identify with and then see how they turn to like way left. Like I definitely see how like being able to see like the red flags and the things to like look out for and be on, to really like things that you wouldn't like would have seemed quote unquote normal in other situations. What I'm thinking about here is the story of oh, if I wasn't trying to think of it, I would tell you immediately. But the one about the Dr. Death.
Oh,
Dr. Death.
the one in Dallas.
Yeah, well, it's a whole series. There's
Right.
several, but
Right.
yes, that's where
The
it
one they started off with that
originated.
series. Yes.
But
yeah.
like that makes me think of like that whole thing where she was just dating this guy, thought he was a doctor, had no reason to not believe he was, and like all the stuff came
Oh,
out.
wasn't that season 2? That was season 2, right?
That was the original.
That was it. Right?
Yeah, the second one it was very similar, but
Okay.
it was a different
Okay.
situation. But
Okay.
yeah, so like it's like these situations they all start out seemingly normal, and then they take like this like turn, and so like yeah, I see it as, and I mean me personally, honestly, there have been a lot of like different things where it's like I have my eyes open to like different things to like look out for and see as red flags early on, as if I had never heard these stories or known about it, I wouldn't have thought a second time about it. But then there have been countless stories of women who have gotten out of situations because they had this knowledge and had heard these stories and were like, yeah, this, I'm not gonna. It's almost like in movies when it's like we could see the threat happening, and it's like if the person on the screen had the knowledge that we had, they could avoid this, and it's. I feel like it's almost that.
Yeah, that's and I specifically chose the martial arts hypothetical question just because that does in my mind relate to that more. Now, given on the flip side, as watchers may know, I was, well, I was pretty good in skateboarding, so I was sponsored the whole nine. Won't go over it, but a big part of that culture is, especially when you kind of get more advanced, you're watching professionals skate. You're not there, but the whole point of that skate video is to watch those people and their techniques, and usually it kind of gets you like inspired to go out and do it yourself. And maybe you're like kind of learning some things because you're getting exposed to somebody skating at a really high level. And I think that's kind of the thing of where I know we got a napper right here, boy, he is comfortable. Where I can see in that way, I've seen it happen because I've lived it. And I know, yeah. For those who are not watching visually, our dogs are on the couch. They're all over
Knocked
me.
out.
And they're like two giant heaters just sitting on me right now. But we're going to persevere. But yeah, I can see the argument for that when I think of it through that lens.
Yeah.
Of there's a learning element to it, right? There's some things I've learned by watching, videos of like if you get kidnapped, these are the things that you should do.
Yeah.
I just don't see that enough of educational content in it. And that's when I'm somewhat, I wouldn't say fully concerned, but it is one of those things where I can say from like, I can't speak for all men, but from a male point of view that I've seen online and other things of where it's like, okay, you won't watch something that's super fake, but you'll like gladly watch a serial killer.
But it's not
Sister, that makes you look
watching
really
the serial killer because you're not seeing what they're doing. You're hearing about it after the fact. You're not necessarily hearing all the gory details, but you're hearing like the facts of the case and the trial and like the things that you're hearing like the details, but not like in a way that honestly like is gonna like might keep you up at night. So like and I will make the delineation between, because me personally, I used to listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, and I will say that true crime podcasts and documentaries are two totally different sides of probably the same coin, but like totally different sides, where sometimes those podcasts will go into like gruesome, explicit detail, and I have stopped. Well, I haven't listened to true crime podcasts almost like in years now for that reason, because I noticed, especially like, at a time when I was like living by myself, and I would listen to it and I would be by myself, like before we met, and I would like really be listening to them, and then I had to like slow down and stop because it was like, I am a single woman living alone and I'm literally just sitting here scaring myself.
Right.
And so I did stop. And even like, now that like, I have a family and I live with people, you would think, okay, well, you're fine, you can listen to it. But I don't listen to it because I noticed like that like listening to all of those details was like instilling a little bit of like fear in me, and I was starting to like, because like I started thinking about it, and I was like, sometimes I would like pause episodes or stop them or like just change to something else because it was like a lot. And I was like, if it's making me feel that way, why am I listening to it at all? And so I really kind of stopped listening to true crime podcasts. However, the documentaries never go into those same details because number one, they can't.
Right.
And number two, they just don't have the time.
Yeah.
So they really summarize a lot, but they still give you like the full picture of the story. And that's what I personally prefer the actual documentaries over the podcast because one, I'm getting less of the gory details, and plus, like for me, I'm like I want to focus on the people that can or survive to tell the story, the people in their lives, like their loved ones. Like I prefer hearing their account of the person. I want to be able to celebrate the victim and not just hear the gory details about how they died.
Yeah. And I think like in America we have a big obsession with the killer, not the victims at
Right.
times, or the shooter.
Yeah, and I don't like that.
And not the victims of certain crimes.
Yeah.
Let alone where some of them are actively walking around today signing rifles.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's, I think, too, that's looking at it through an American lens, too, when I look at true crime as a whole and just being like, y'all are really into this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, yikes.
And some people do still consume those podcast episodes like day after day. And I used to be one of them, but it's like, that is a lot.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And so,
But it's funny because,
Yeah.
you know, we try to keep this remotely family friendly, but we were talking about how it's almost in the way of when women are attracted to, you know, gravitate towards true crime and the way it's presented, but then they may not be the main viewers of horror movies on average, even though it could be actually based on the same thing, even in a certain format. And to me, it's porn. It's men are more visual, whereas women, you know, if you're watching this of a certain age, and probably still now, I don't know how new generations of women, but grandma would read some smut, okay? You read some of them romance novels with the guy with the open shirt, chest out. Wild business when you actually read that book. You like, Grandma, what is going on? Right next to the Bible, Lord. So you're just like, wow.
those
this
are
is
still popular
crazy.
today.
Oh yeah, I remember. But I remember when they used to be right next to like the checkout at the supermarket.
yeah.
They moved them though, but they used
Do they
to be
still
right
sell
there.
books at the store?
Yeah, I
Do
think they. I think
they?
they still.
I want to go to the grocery store and buy
I
a
think
book.
so.
I want to go to the
know.
grocery
We
store and
kind of
buy a
bougie.
book.
They
I'm gonna
don't-
go buy a book at the grocery
Do
store
they really
just to do it.
sell? Do they sell those books at like
I
Whole
don't know.
Foods? Though?
I'm gonna go to
But
the Kroger and
yeah, you
buy a
gotta
book.
go to the Albertsons or the
I'm gonna do
Kroger or
that.
something like that. Like you can't. Not these newfangled. Like they ain't probably selling them at Sprouts.
No, they don't have
know
books
what
at
I'm saying?
Sprouts.
Like they ain't. Well,
But
they
now I'm
got-
very
They probably
curious
got some books.
if they still have books
They-
at Kroger.
Yeah, there's probably like some health
I'm gonna
like,
go
books
find
and
out.
stuff like that.
No, like I want to find some like paperback novels. We'll
Yeah,
see.
that's what I'm saying.
If
like,
I'm gonna
boys about,
I'm gonna
you
go to
know.
Kroger this week, and if I find a paperback novel, I'm gonna buy it. Anyway,
that'd be wild stuff. But
just to say I bought a book at the store.
But yeah, and it's like, well, at one point in time, they were selling porn at the grocery store for real.
Oh,
Yeah, in some markets, you would go to
Oh.
like the grocery store and they would have it in the bag at the top.
no, I thought that wasn't just at the convenience store.
Nah. I remember
Because they definitely
yeah.
you could do it like when you got gas.
Right. But
I
nah,
remember seeing those
I remember that there, and I remember
they
at
would
the
keep 'em,
old
like,
school bookstore,
back behind the counter. and locked up.
Yep. You could go on and get it behind the counter and stuff like that. But grandma's book, you can just pick up.
Did you ever get one of those?
No, I didn't, because I'm from the internet age essentially when
Oh,
I
yeah.
became of
You
age.
didn't need it.
It was just like, you know, for some folks, like you would find it in the woods, which we literally actually did one time when I was a kid.
That's scary.
And you're just like,
'Cause
well,
it's like, why was it in the woods?
being an older millennial is like still having a taste of how old stuff used to
Oh
work.
yeah.
Right?
I mean, yeah, I was born in the 80s.
So same. So it's kind of like, yeah, you would find like a nude magazine in the woods randomly.
Why were you
Somebody
in the
dumped.
woods?
Because
We'll talk about this
you
off
were a
camera.
kid. Because you were a kid.
Why were you in the woods?
No,
Anyway.
that's on camera.
I
Hey.
didn't go into the woods.
Oh yeah, no, we were in the woods, and I grew up in the city. That's the crazy part. We
Why
still
were you
had
in the
like
woods? Don't go in
wooded
the woods.
areas. And you had
Please
creeks,
stay out of the woods.
all that stuff.
Please stay out of the woods if you're watching this.
I mean, you actually, it's safer to go in the woods now than I'm sure it was back in the 90s. We didn't have
Please
no
stay
cell
out of
phones.
the woods.
We had no
Anyway,
cell phones. You can find somebody now.
So, we have to talk about the white woman missing syndrome.
Yes, we do.
So I watched American Murder, Gabby Petito, and I do care about her, and I care about her life and her death, and I think it's sad. I think she was a naive girl and got caught up in just with the wrong person, and she was just a sweet girl who was really trying to just start a YouTube channel and do the whole van life thing, and she really was trying to do it, and she was with somebody who they should have never gone on the road together. Let's just say that. But Gabby Petito disappeared in August 2021. Her case was dominated headlines for weeks. Social media sleuths and major news outlets turned her disappearance into a viral event. There were live streams, map analysis, hashtags, hashtag find Gabby. Meanwhile, there are thousands of missing Indigenous, Black, and Brown women who received and still receive little to no coverage despite ongoing disappearances. And this double standard has a name. It's called Missing White Women Syndrome. And the term was coined by journalist Gwen Ifill to describe the media's tendency to sensationalize cases involving young, attractive, middle-class white women while ignoring women of color.
And poor white women even.
Yeah, that
Because
too.
there are many a times where they're just like, she was trailer trash.
If you fit a certain profile, your disappearance goes lower and lower on the totem pole unless you have people who are advocating for you and keeping your name out there and doing everything that they can to fight the 24-hour news cycle.
And that's why I don't care. Come for me, internet. I don't care. I lived through Amy Smart. And meanwhile, while Amy Smart was not being so smart, she had multiple times to get away, there was a little black girl that got kidnapped during that time in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken. Fled her captors, was only kidnapped for 4 hours, and was able enough to get back to the house to watch herself on the evening news. But then we have this girl who had multiple times got kidnapped by some folks, was only a couple blocks away from where she lived, and she was missing for years and disappeared for years. Had multiple times to run away to gas stations. They took her out to they had this girl not locked up in the basement in chains. She was just went off to live life with these folks.
Yeah.
I have fatigue for them folks. I don't care. Missing white women, there's always going to be somebody to come find them. But like I said, trans women, black women, indigenous women, Hispanic women, and in some cases even Asian women, we don't hear about these stories, but they're getting missing every day. And that's just the women. The men, dude just walked off. What? He did not walk off. He had a family, kids. He was supposed to show up to work today. Why ain't y'all looking for... So, for me, do I really truly not care? No, I do care that, somebody is in trouble. But to be honest, when we talk about fatigue in this country of certain things, white women fatigue is definitely number one on the list. You really want to go and ask people on the street about a woman who's been dominating some portions of the internet. Gabby Petito was on my news feed, was not on my social media feed. Because a lot of people on my social media feed is going to be like, okay, well, anyway, there's this Mexican woman that's been missing from Sanitas, California. And she has 3 kids at home. We would feel like she would probably want to get back to them, or this Polynesian woman that's been missing for God knows long. and her whole family's looking for her. Can you share this story? And those get no traction. So yeah. That's my soapbox rant. But honestly, it powers a lot of true crime. And as a black man in America, I'm like, man, there's some folks that I definitely feel like should be definitely getting the spotlight in these things. And I just see every day.
Yeah.
You get a small blip if you're on a very small corner of the internet, and then you have folks dominating the headlines that you're kind of like, maybe she was in that van not watching true crime, because how does she not know that this
Yeah.
guy, and you start hearing about what the guy is, you're like, oh, bro, this guy
Yeah.
was a big walking red flag in the first place. How in the world, like, did she even end up in this situation?
Right. Final thoughts. This was a long one.
This was a long one.
I didn't think it was going to be this long. But,
I knew it was, but
yeah, so, along with our theme, true crime is modern horror because it's real. And I've watched a lot of it. And I can say that I am just still so fascinated by people's stories and people's lives because they are just so different from mine. And I mean, I think that's what draws a lot of us to these stories because they're just so different from what we've lived and what we've experienced and what we know and have seen. And
yeah.
just to see what's out there and the way that other people live is truly fascinating to me.
Yeah. For me, just kind of being the, like, I wouldn't say the voice of dissent, but what's funny is I've watched majority of these, more than likely because you probably told me, like, we need to watch this. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And then I get into it. I'm like, what? What happened?
I don't like I told you. I told you.
They crazy. Let me go heat up something real quick before episode 2 start. But yeah, I think true crime, yes, is honestly, I feel like true crime is now we're kind of considering that as a genre. I would say it's a hybrid genre because true crime, some of the things you've listed have some dramatization
Yeah.
aspects.
Yeah.
Was it Good American Family? Right, but and then that's a based on obviously what truly happened as a documentary.
Yeah.
And there's some levels to it that, clearly there probably is a crime at the heart of that. So it would technically make that true crime. But then also it's still in the realm of documentaries and podcasts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
because a lot of these stories have had dramatic reenactments.
Right.
That's what I would call it.
Right.
Because,
Yeah, and so I think like Serial, right? Serial was a huge breakout, which is funny that we didn't even talk about that per se, and it does have a visual component to it.
Well, not a dramatic reenactment, but
Well,
there's
if I'm not
like
mistaken,
a
there's
documentary series
Right.
that kind of breaks down the entire case and
which
yeah.
I thought they did have something that
There's never
wasn't
been
necessarily.
there's never been a like dramatic reenactment.
Oh, I thought there was something that was like trying to put a dramatization to it, but not completely say it was that one. But okay, but
Oh, you mean like something that was loosely based?
yeah, I felt like
I
that would have been something,
know.
but
Yeah. I haven't heard of that.
yeah,
And I stayed pretty updated on that case.
I remember that. Yeah.
But I don't know.
But yeah, and so, my complete thing is with, I wanted to include this in this month because I feel like it squarely falls within the realm of horror.
Absolutely.
And I think it would, since, yes, women drive this, I think also too, there might be a way for them to be able to package this to a men's audience for the same stories. And I think it's just in the way of the storytelling.
Well, and we're getting off topic of our wrapping up, but I would say the sports documentary on Netflix,
Yes. Now,
which includes a lot of elements of true crime.
actually, that whole sports, their kind of their version of 30 for 30 is all crime.
Yeah.
Like pretty much all of them
And
are
it's so
some form of
good.
crime.
It's so
And
good.
it is really good. So it's funny how, and it includes murder, robberies and everything like that. It's just
And breaking
packaged.
down like different things that happened in sports history that you may not have known all the details of, you may
Right.
not have heard the outcome of,
Yeah.
you may not remember it all.
Oh yeah, Malice in the
Like
Palace.
Malice at
I
the
don't
Palace. I didn't know anything
remember
about it going
watching
in. Like
that.
he knew about it, but
Yeah.
I just became a basketball fan like 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
now I'm a huge basketball fan. Now
Yeah.
that I get what's going on, I'm obsessed with basketball. But like before, like back in the 90s, I didn't know anything about basketball. And so in the 2000s, I knew nothing about
Yeah.
basketball. So, yeah, getting to go back and watch stuff like, about Michael Jordan and the Nike Air movie. And, it's exciting now because now I'm like, I get it and I'm all in on basketball. But like when it was actually happening, I was here, but I wasn't following along because I didn't know. So
Right.
it's cool to get to go see stories from like the 80s and 90s that I heard about maybe like just in passing, but knew nothing about and didn't even know like the players involved and stuff. So like seeing those stories and then like getting to see the interviews of the people today and them looking back on what happened and telling their side of the story and their regrets and things like that, like, is very interesting.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned that because now it does make me think like that was true crime documentary, all of those.
Packaged for men.
But yeah, it kind of felt like it was packaged for men, and I think it was just in the presentation,
Yeah.
literally the way it's shot,
Yeah.
because it was a 30 for 30 documentary, which not all of them are really based on crimes. It's just like, oh, the life and times of, this great tennis player and Arthur Ashe, as far as we know, never really gotten any crime, but we need to tell that story. And it's shot in a certain way that keeps it entertaining. And then I think they just applied that same thing, but they were like, let's try to get the more juicier things, even if it's like a small, middling, like boxer from Canada.
Yeah.
But let's tell that
Yeah.
story.
But the story is like mind blowing.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. And then you're like,
Yeah.
how did this miss me?
Yeah. And there's like so many twists and turns, and you're like,
Yeah.
what?
Right.
Like even the story of the guys that went out on the sailing guys, like
Oh, yeah.
that like
one was,
just all kinds of twists and turns,
that
and you're like,
was a
what?
crazy
And I
one.
would have never been
yeah,
interested
sailing?
in sailing, and like,
Nobody,
who
to be
cares?
honest. I
But then
mean-
I heard that story and I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, that was
So, yeah.
So yeah, no, true crime is cool. Like I think it's a very versatile genre, but honestly, when you just really analyze it, you're like, wow, this is people doing horrible things, and it's real.
Yeah.
Scariest thing you can ever imagine.
Yeah.
Shout out to Candyman, shout out to Jason, shout out to Freddy, but sometimes you ain't got nothing on just the guy next door.
Yikes.
And with that, I think it's gonna be a wrap.
Yes. So again, please like, subscribe, share this video, leave us a comment. If you're listening on podcast platforms, you can send us a text. You can send us, or is it a voice message?
You can do both.
You can send us a voice message. And like we said, if you send us a voice message, we'll feature you and answer you on the episode. So, give us something to work with here. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We truly appreciate you. And we will continue to make this content as long as you guys keep watching and listening. So see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.